Hello and welcome. This is going to be in addition to Path of the Empress Step 15. I think this was going to be Step F or G, or portion of the Step F or G. And I was thinking about it, and there's an addition to this that I wanted to talk about, and it feels best being put with the devil card theme because a lot of times with the devil card theme, what we what can come up as a reader is that it can be about tantric energy or sexual energy. And one of the things that most often, well, it's not just the twin thing. Everybody kind of gets wrapped up in it, is that we tend to not really be very careful about sharing our tantric energy. And I think it's really important to note that, because especially when a twin gets matched up with, and especially divine masculines, but divine feminines, we do it too, is that when we get matched up with a karmic, oftentimes the way that we get kind of spellbound to them is because we automatically jump into doing sexual things with them. And there's many spiritual paths that talk about all sorts of different things that can happen when you interact with somebody and you share that energy, because you're sharing your kundalini energy. You're also sharing certain amounts of vulnerability and trust. But in today's era, like, we don't really think about that as something to really be sacred. And we might throw it around, or we confuse like sexual interaction with love. And especially masculines tend to do that a lot, and there's some biological reasons for that, but a lot of it is just social conditioning. And as divine feminines, we tend to confuse like a lack of physical interaction in general, whether that's texting and communicating, or whether that's actual like physical sexual connection or tantric connections. Like, if we're not getting that from our masculines, we associate that with a lack of commitment or a lack of them choosing us and things like that. And when we feel lonely, we often associate that with wanting to be in physical connection with somebody else. And we don't stop and think about what can happen when we connect with somebody physically. And it doesn't even have to be like full on intercourse, like just thinking about somebody in that way, or doing milder interactions in that way, can then commingle your energy with another person. And it's a very real thing. And if they're on a different timeline of healing, you then connect with them on their timeline, and that can either pull you back or push you forward. And that a lot of times, like I was saying, that's why divine masculines can get connected in there. But even if you are a divine feminine who has been like, you've been practicing kind of your own form of chastity while you work on yourself or wait for your masculine or things like that, or maybe you've been selective in that, just because you are not being, sexual with others, does not mean that you don't have work to do and healing in those ways, especially if your twin, your DM, is connecting, because we always reflect each other. So and this is part of what I talk about, or I've been trying to talk about in these series, is that a reflection of something does not necessarily mean a direct, like, AB reflection. Sometimes it can be ABC. Like, if your twin is connected with a karmic, like say they already started out with one, or they rebounded to one, and they are in a tantric connection with them, they've connected with them sexually. It's funny, my nose is itching, so my DM must be thinking about me. um, if they are connecting with them and you are not connecting with anyone, that does not necessarily mean that, goodness sakes, that you are not beholden to that same energy. For one thing, you're connected to your twin, and with things that they do affect you, and the things that you do affect them. But if you, like, let's say for example, they're connecting with someone in a sexual way, you're not connecting with anyone in a sexual way, you're still holding on to control. There could be control issues that you need to release, because by you trying to hold on to control in that way, you are reflecting that they are trying to hold on to control, but you're reflecting, but it's like looking in the mirror and seeing opposite images. Like, you're being controlling by not opening up your sacral chakra in any way, and they are reflecting by being too open with it, but maybe with like one specific person, or they could be doing it with everybody but you. It's still a reflection of challenges in the sacral chakra, and a lot of times it has to do with issues with sexual shame or repression, or just there's shadow work in there to do. That's important to get into. And just in general, I mean, it's important to make sure that you really know who it is that you're connecting with. Like, say you connect with, or you're open to connecting with a soulmate. You don't want to just go out and just sleep around with anybody. I'm a very kinky person. I love Esther Perel, and I've worked with sex workers in terms of like working on consent and different things like that. I have no problem with promiscuity. I do, however, I find that it's important to be intentional about who you connect with in physical ways, because you are then commingling your energy with them. And even just in flirtation, that can be important. And that doesn't mean don't do it, it just means be aware that you're doing it, be aware of who you're connecting with. And also, especially in terms of the devil card, think about what your life has been like up to now. If you've had a lot of traumas in the when it comes to sexuality, childhood traumas, things like that, and or your DM has, those are things to go back and work on. And yes, it's going to bring up some tower moments for you and for them, but that's what's needed. And if you find that you have a block in your connection and you're not getting through it, it's likely because these are deeper shadows that you need to go through and face. So what I recommend at this time is to, get out your journal and examine what is it that what are your beliefs about sexuality? What are your beliefs about monogamy or polyamory or promiscuity? What are your beliefs about what sort of reciprocity should exist in a dynamic with, like, you could use your DM or with anybody. Like, what are your boundaries there? What are things that you've always wanted to explore and haven't, and why haven't you explored them? And where are the areas that you feel shameful, about your body, about your mind? What are the ways that you would, like, what are some things that you would like to do but you wouldn't, because if people found out about it you would feel shame or embarrassment? And work on getting to the point to where you can embrace the person that you are without really giving two hoots about what anybody else thinks about it except you. And start to face that stuff, because when you start to face that stuff and you work on it for you, then your DM will start to work on it for themselves, and you will find that there is a lot fewer blockages there, and you'll start to release control in those ways. And that's also another theme that has to do with the devil card, is releasing control, and especially releasing control in terms of either allowing yourself to just freely interact with whomever and being far too, like, willy-nilly about all of your connections. Like, you're not intentional about them at all, you don't think about them at all, you just do whatever it is you feel in the moment, which is fine, I'm not judging that. But in terms of, if you're embracing the twin flame path, you want to be more intentional about who you interact with and why, and what is your intention about it. And also, on the opposite side, because you're going for balance, you don't want the opposite extreme where you never interact with anybody, especially if you're like, I'm not going to flirt with anybody, I'm not going to talk with anybody, I'm not going to connect with anybody, no dates, no nothing, because I'm waiting for my twin. You are holding your union out of place when you do that. You don't want to go the other way. And even just as a person in general, you if you feel like you are far too, if you're far too strict about who you interact with, your boundaries are far